Hello, everyone. Shadab Hussain here. I'm alone today because Jamie is on a break. He will be joining next week. Let's get started. Pope Leo this week actually released his first Magnifica Humanitas, which is basically mean magnificent humanity, and it's a encyclical where he talks about and addresses his views on the global affairs, and that included artificial intelligence. He talked about disarming AI, which does not mean rejecting technology but preventing it from dominating humanity. We'll delve deeper into that. We'll also talk about what's happening with the Amazon's plan and AI ambition in Hollywood, how the Gen AI is being included in the content production and the backlash it creates. We'll also talk about some of the shifting political perspectives and what's happening in terms of the regulations and the states' moves, etc., for or against AI. Anthropic then also released Opus 4.8, so we'll briefly touch upon that, as well as Microsoft's new redesigned Copilot, M365 Copilot to say. And then we'll touch upon an case study about how you can use AI at work, and I'll talk about how you can use like Copilot co-work to create a dashboard, basically to bring everybody during a crisis situation on the same page, identify the actions, and make sure the impact is well understood. Because every crisis situation deals with so many different people throughout the channels, teams, calls, meetings, emails, etc. It's really hard to keep track of. But you can create that clarity through the chaos. And I'll talk about how I've done that in my own personal work. That and more. Stay tuned for the quick introduction. So this week, Pope Leo, the 267th Bishop of Rome, basically, he talked about the artificial intelligence in his encyclical, the first one that he wrote, basically Magnifica Humanitas, which means magnificent humanity. And it includes views on global affairs. He said the AI should not be concentrated in the hands of only a few people. He called for disarming AI, which does not mean rejecting technology, but preventing it from dominating humanity. It was released alongside Christopher Olah, one of the co founders of the AI giant Anthropic. During the presentation at the Vatican on Monday, Olah acknowledged that all AI labs, including his own, operate inside a set of incentives and constraints that can sometimes conflict with doing the right thing. That's why it is enormously important that there be people outside those incentives who are paying close attention, who are willing to say hard things, and who are willing to be our earnest, thoughtful critics. Unquote. He also added, quoting him, we need more of the world, religious communities, civil societies, scholars, governments to do what His Holiness has done here, to take this seriously, to look closely, and to push events in a better direction. Unquote. Well, that's very interesting because whenever the mass happens, people actually start going towards, the religious community leaders, civil societies, scholars, governments, academias, etc. Um, whenever the mass happen, why? I mean, because they really wield a lot of influence over the people. People listen to them. They are considered on the higher grounds, etc. So, and I think it's a time that those leaders have started stepping in with the perspective, not too flattering view of the AI. Unfortunately, that's a problem, and I think this problem is self-made because all this crap going on about the how the AI will replace people and you can fire everybody. I don't know, like, sometimes I feel that people who go to like top business schools, engineering schools, etc., have become billionaires and millionaires, and you would assume that they are extremely smart. I beg to differ because I don't think those leaders are extremely smart. They just don't know. They're basically nerds, live their own cocoons. They're not understanding how the society reacts and how it is creating the backlash. This is already, you can see it everywhere. Now, AI has become more rather than an excitement, it creates a fear and it's not working out well. Look at what Pope Leo had to actually step in because technology amplifies the intention, and the intention of some of the people are not very good, nefarious intentions, right? So, and I think that's why Pope Leo is stepping in. This document, which, by the way, Pope Leo published on Monday, but he signed it May 15 retroactively, specifically timed to coincide with the 135th anniversary of another key document crafted by his namesake predecessor, Pope Leo, in 1891. This is symbolic because the previous Leo, Pope Leo, focused on workers' rights in the Industrial Revolution. The current day Leo wrote that we cannot limit ourselves simply to repeating his insightful teachings. He said we must ask God for the wisdom to interpret the great trends of our time, particularly technological advances. Rather, he warned against AI being wielded by a powerful few private interests, unchecked by governments, and with the capacity to normalize war through unmanned weapons. He said a more moral AI is not enough if that morality is determined by a few. And I think it's well said. He calls for prudence, rigorous evaluation, and even at times a slower pace in adopting AI does not mean opposing progress. He said in the document that instead it is an exercise of responsible care for the human family. The use of AI in warfare must be subject to the most rigorous ethical constraints to guarantee respect for human dignity and the sanctity of life and to avoid a race to develop such arms. He also warned that humanity is slipping into a violent culture of power, where peace no longer appears as a responsibility to be taken on, but as a fragile interval between conflicts. Unquote. I think these words are profound, and I would say they just reflect the current sentiment. David Sachs, he is a previous White House's former AI and crypto czar. He said, quoting him, the Pope rightly warns that AI must serve human dignity, not becoming a tool of domination or exclusion. But if we hand governments sweeping power over AI development in the name of safety, how do we prevent it from being used to censor, surveil, and control citizens? As Orwell foretold in 1984, unquote, referring to George Orwell's famous novel about dystopia in 1984. Um, he said, who will guard the guardians? Anyway, I think one of the things is that, of course, Pope Leo is very influential. He's one of the leading world's religious scholar um, in the Catholic domination of the Christianity, but he's well respected. He is the first American pontiff to that position, and he himself is actually a like he's very active in science. He's a math major, etc. He loves science and technology, so he's not just fearful of technology. He's just talking about, if it doesn't benefit humanity, it is a problem. And secondly, he's not talking about rejecting it. He's just saying, need to disarm, don't use it as a weapon, basically, right? Don't weaponize AI in all sorts of things that can happen. He's also warning about essentially the intention, right? As I said, technology amplifies intention, and he's worried that some of the people, it should not be just in the hands of some of the private billionaires and private parties' interest. Let's talk to new another items in the news where Amazon unveils its AI ambitions in Hollywood, sparking a creator revolt. So Amazon MGM Studio, right? Amazon owns that, and then Amazon Web Services have launched the GenAI Creators Fund. The fund provides funding and access to AI production tools to filmmakers, digital creators, and tech startups, enabling them to develop premium TV shows and movies. It supports proof of concept pilots and shorts, with selected projects greenlit for full production. At the heart of the initiative is Project Nara, Amazon MGM's purpose built AI production platform for visual storytelling. It's built on AWS infrastructure, of course. It has integration of third-party Gen AI models like Kling, proprietary models trained on Amazon MGM projects. It has compatibility with industry standard tools like Blender, Maya, Unreal Engine, etc. Collaborative workspace for real-time video generation, editing, feedback, and progress tracking, as well as model-agnostic architecture and provenance tracking to protect the intellectual property. The fund's debut projects are three animated series from Prime Video. The first one is Punky Duck. It was supposed to be directed by Jorge R. Gutierrez, who also did the Book of Life earlier. And However, he has backed out because of the backlash it has created. So, as I was referring to the backlash it is creating in society, you can see clearly evidenced here. There are two other projects also: Love, Diana Music Hunters, and Cupcake and Friends. These are, remember, animated series from Prime Video. Okay, talk about the other news. There is a lot of shifting political perspectives and developments happening across the country and the world. The Vice President J.D. Vance, by the way, told graduating cadets at the Air Force Academy that decisions over life and death must be made by humans and not machines. Um, yeah, that's right. But is it happening really? I mean, what we have heard from a lot of news about AI being used in the ongoing wars and conflicts. So I'm not too sure, actually. I think things have gone to quite an extent already. Um, but he talks the right thing there in the address, and which kind of resonates with what Pope Leo is also talking about. On the other hand, President Donald Trump scuttled his own planned executive order on AI regulation at the last minute, citing concerns that it might get in the way of the country's ability to compete with China. At the same time, the Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is using his power as chief executive to begin rolling out initiatives to beef up AI controls. Last week, Governor Newsom signed an executive order requiring state agencies to work with industry groups, academics, and organized labor to develop plans for assessing and offsetting AI's effects on California workers. I think that's a good move. Um, in the state of Illinois, the bill SB 315, it basically on the line of same provisions in the legislation draft that were made in California and in New York, which requires frontier AI companies like OpenAI and Anthropic to create, publish, and annually update plans to address severe or catastrophic risks from their AI models. It would also mandate annual independent third party audits of such AI companies on safety issues, which would be a first for any AI legislation in the US. In the other news, you have seen a lot of AI slaps, and I use YouTube a lot, and I'm tired of seeing so much AI generated content. Oh man, it's killing me. Um, and a lot of time you don't need to be told that it's AI content because you can see it is silly, it is cringy, and it is just unrealistic, right? It's outrageous. So it's not possible, right? That's how you know it's AI, and you can see visibly. However, I'll tell you one thing: these things are getting really, really good. Okay, sometimes it's really hard. Now you have to start thinking. Sometimes is it real or is it AI? And it sometimes makes it difficult because it could be a mix of things as well, right? So it's not just purely AI generated, it could be mixed as well. Um, and I think this news about YouTube automatically labeling AI videos is a welcome move because it just helps. Because I'll tell you what, people like, you and I would probably be able to decipher if it is an AI content because we operate in that segment. But a lot of people don't. And what they see is what they believe. Doesn't matter where it comes from. If they see it, they think it's right. It can create a massive problem. It is already creating massive problem. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about a launch. Anthropic released Opus 4.8 with new dynamic workflow tools and a bunch of features. So 4.8 is an upgraded flagship model with improved coding, reasoning, agentic workflows, and enterprise knowledge work performance, blah, 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 blah. As usual, it is positioned as a more reliable AI collaborator. It is definitely better on the benchmarks, but I'm tired of benchmarks, so we're not going to get into the benchmarks. It's just consider that, yeah, it's better. Not massively better, but it's better than the 4.7. It introduced something called dynamic workflows, which basically enables large scale automation. Cloud can plan tasks and execute hundreds of parallel sub agents to handle complex workflows like full code based migrations. It also adds user control effort levels to trade off speed versus depth. It's becoming a massive issue where companies are realizing that they're actually burning through it and the cost is very high. And there's a lot of talk about that. What happened was that adaptive reasoning in the cloud actually that started creating sometime a lot of consumption issues because even for the simple query, it was taking too long and too much costly. So now you have this user control effort level where you can define that, okay, don't spend too much, or limit basically how much effort to be put. And that will of course control, that will actually, like, that's how you will govern whether it's fast, cheaper, etc., or you want more reason and more reliable. So depending on the topic, you can choose it. Now, there is a fast mode as well, which runs 2.5 times faster than standard and is significantly cheaper than prior fast modes. The price is same. So price is same as the 4.7, so there's no increase in the price. This model 4.8 actually enhances accuracy, honesty, and reliability. It is 4 times less likely to miss flaws in its own output. Particularly, they are talking about that this being more honest model because it can predict its own output, and rather than jumping to the conclusion, which sometimes the other models can do. Um, Anthropic also teased about releasing Mythos level models in coming weeks. Now, we don't know what it will mean, how much they will govern it. They have said in the past that they will release it, and or they will rather regulate the cybersecurity and exploitation of vulnerability kind of capability. So I think they're working on that to just make sure that it is a safer release. Anyway, moving on, Microsoft has redesigned Microsoft 365 Copilot to be cleaner, faster, and more adaptive. Copilot is actually on the roll. 365 Copilot is now, recently you have heard, one of the massive rollouts, 700,000 in Accenture, and then another, I think, 500,000 rollouts happening in the EY, etc. So there's massive rollouts that are happening. And I'll tell you what, I use Copilot a lot. It is as good as the other tools like ChatGPT and Claude. Um, in the past 1 year ago or so, I think there was a drop in the quality, okay, and the experience. And Microsoft has gone back to the whiteboard and done some work. And I will say that in the last several months, I found it much better. Now it's totally reliable. I use it for most of my things nowadays. So the 365 Copilot is also getting a kind of a redesign, right? Design over because now it's more adaptive, it's more context aware. The For example, the box in which you write the prompt, it actually changes. So the canvas is basically progressive and adaptive canvas. It will use a lot of context, right? Using the work IQ, it will know your emails, files, etc. So it will provide a lot very context aware interface. And then it has a more, I would say, unified entry point across the apps with a dynamic prompt area, right? There is a progressive disclosure to reveal capabilities as needed. So very context aware. It's 50% faster load time, 10% faster response times for the complex prompts. It has become the I would say the adaptation of the Copilot has been going on into all different kind of apps. Sometimes the experience could be different, but now they're promising a more unified, uniform experience across the apps. The Copilot adoption has also been increasing a lot across the M365 application, whether it's Excel or PowerPoint, etc. There is a massive improved engagement there as well. So I think this is telling us the signs of that Microsoft is focusing on the design, and I would say I think Microsoft does need to, because one of the things is, while Microsoft, a lot of products are very user friendly, but sometimes they're not the best experience. Okay, and it's hard to differentiate because I'll tell you what, like most people are comfortable using. Maybe it has become a baseline, but most people are very comfortable because we have used it. So like now it's like the word has become baseline, right? It's hard to use something else because now we know it so well. But I think definitely there is always a scope of the design. In fact, Microsoft actually a few weeks ago announced that they are appointing their very first own Chief Design Officer. Jonathan Friedman has been appointed. He's a veteran at Microsoft, worked in M365. So no wonder when this news came out, I think this is related to all of that, that there's a lot of work going on in the design. And the new Copilot definitely looks much better and more experience friendly. Moving on, let's talk about the segment AI at work, right? So I was talking about how during the crisis situation and the chaos, there are so many different people. And I had a situation where we have like multiple people involved, over 25 people involved. It's kind of a crisis because it impacts customer. There's a disruption, business disruption, right? It creates a risk. And it's a massive problem. It requires a lot of escalations, which is happening internally. And sometimes it's really just hard to keep track because a dynamic situation changes by the hours and the days, and it's not just spanning couple of days, but it runs over several weeks, even months actually. So how do you keep track of it, right, and make sure that there is a clarity, everybody's on the same page in terms of the clarity, everybody understand the actions, the impact is well understood, and progress is happening. And that was a problem because we did not have a single source where you can, even single plane where you can go and have that visibility. And it's very hard, as I said, right, it's a massively dynamic situation, lots of different channels, conversations are happening all across, very hard to keep track. And we were talking about this problem, and I thought that how about using Copilot Co-work to solve this problem? And I went to the Copilot Co-work, which is part of the M365 Copilot, and I asked it to create a dashboard, monitor my chats, Teams chat, and the emails, etc. Look at the messages and consolidate them into the thread if they are related, and report that in the tabular format, each item. It should have the brief about what is required, what is happening, who's the owner, what are the last actions, what are the impact in terms of the dollar, how much business does it impact, and the next actions that you need to take. It will also have tracking ID, all kind of IDs that are used, ticket ID, incident ID, all those sorts of IDs, identifiers. Put that also in the place. And it actually did a wonderful job at that. Now of course, some of that I found that some of the items were represented redundantly, so I taught it to identify and these items are redundant and make sure that it consolidates. So from several items it becomes lesser and lesser, so it's adaptive, it learns, it saves that in the memory. And then I schedule it, right, and I say that okay, do that every day in the morning. Later I change it to every Monday and Thursday. So every Monday and Thursday it creates a post, it sums up all the past few days progress since the last refresh, sends out a post in the team chat to all the people that where all the stakeholders are included, and gives them an overview of the, like a summary of the action that has happened since the last refresh. It gives a link, it gives a snapshot of a dashboard with just a metric, how many issues are blocked, how many issues are open, active, and closed in the whatever the current time frame. And it does that. It also, in fact, sometime I just want to make sure that it is not being, because it goes to a lot of people, I want to make sure that it is not represented wrongly. So I asked it to send me a review post 1.5 hour before the actual launch time every Monday and Thursday. And it does. And I asked it to hold it until I approve. When I review it, I see everything is looking good. I go to the Copilot Cowork and say, okay, release it. If I find some change to be done, I say that, okay, do this change and make sure that it retains the memory. So amazing, I would say output. It's fully automated. I don't do anything anymore except the review, which I do occasionally. And but it's very adaptive. You can improve it, and it brought a lot of relief. It was highly appreciated, well recognized that this is creating that kind of impact, and it's very usable. And I would suggest that you all can use it. This is a really good case in point where you can use AI to bring the clarity and make the impact. Okay, so that's the AI at work for today. I cannot show you because it's related to my work. I cannot tell you the specifics of it, but I've given you the sense of what you can do in the Copilot Cowork. Copilot Cowork is amazing because it has access to it. It basically uses the cloud models inside the Copilot 365 Copilot, and it has access to your Teams messages, M365 apps, etc. So it can go through all of that wherever you have the access to. Okay, and that's about it for today. Make sure you keep listening and sharing with others. Bye, everyone.